They called Earth broken, its skies ash, its oceans dead, its people fractured. But when they came to erase us, they found her standing in the ruins, a blue-skinned alien girl holding a single glowing flame. She was not human, yet she had crossed the stars to bring us one last chance. Together, we would light the fires of defiance and show the galaxy that humanity was far from finished. This is not the story of extinction. This is the story of our awakening. In the hollowed husk of what was once New Chicago, the wind carried the stench of rust and scorched concrete, sweeping across jagged towers that clawed at a starless sky. Humanity had been beaten, bombarded by orbital strikes, starved by blockade, stripped of cities that had once burned brighter than the sun. But amid the skeletal ruins, where shadows moved like ghosts and the ground still smoldered, something glowed, a small, trembling light held in the hands of a girl who wasn't from our world. Her skin shimmered a soft, bioluminescent blue under the dying moonlight, marked with faint streaks of silver along her cheeks, like constellations painted by grief. Her long black hair flowed messily around her shoulders, streaked with dust and ash, but her eyes, bright teal, sharp and alive, burned with a fire that made even the ruins seem less dead. The flame she carried was no ordinary light. It pulsed faintly, as if breathing, casting warmth against the cold. We found her in the middle of the blast crater where the first orbital strike hit, kneeling in the ashes with that flame cupped between her shaking fingers. She looked up when we approached, our rifles drawn, our armor cracked, our hope barely holding, and whispered in a trembling voice, "This is all that remains." Her words weren't human, but somehow we understood her, maybe from the way her lips trembled when she spoke, maybe from the quiet desperation in her eyes. She was carrying more than light. She was carrying a promise. "What is it?" one of us asked, though we didn't expect an answer we could understand. She hesitated, lowering her gaze to the flame, as though afraid speaking might kill it. Finally she said, "Life for a world that is dying." She rose carefully, her short, ragged clothes, stitched from alien fabric, clinging to her curves as the wind whipped around her. Her long legs were smudged with dust and blood, yet every step she took was measured, protective, as though the flame weighed more than her own body. Behind us, the horizon burned, enemy ships raining streaks of white fire onto the cities we had left behind. The night trembled with explosions. And yet, in that one fragile light, we saw something we hadn't seen in months. Hope. She led us into the underground tunnels, what had been subways before the war, now hollow bones of a forgotten world. Hundreds of us, soldiers, civilians, wounded children, huddled beneath the concrete, breathing damp air that smelled of rust and fear. She stood at the center, the flame glowing brighter as more eyes turned toward it. People whispered, some of them crying, not because they understood what it was, but because it felt like life itself had walked into our tomb. The girl knelt, placing the flame on an old, broken pedestal that might have once been part of a collapsed station. "This world has a heart," she said softly, her teal eyes reflecting the light. "But it was broken. I can mend it, but only if you carry this flame with me." "Where?" I asked. She looked toward the east, toward the shattered skyline that hid enemy ships and orbital cannons. "To the place where your world was born." We knew where she meant. The Ark Spire, humanity's first launch site for deep space colonization, now little more than twisted metal and glass shards under alien control. The most fortified point left on Earth. A suicide run. But no one said no. Not after seeing that light. The journey was a blur of ash and steel. We moved through dead streets where shadows clung to walls like scars. The girl walked ahead, her horns faintly glowing under the light of the flame, her hair trailing behind her like black silk, catching embers in the wind. She didn't flinch at the sights, piles of burnt-out vehicles, skeletal remains of those who hadn't made it to cover, husks of drones still sparking in the dust. Instead, she looked forward, always forward, as if she had done this before. And maybe she had, on worlds like ours, broken and burning, where she had been too late. But not here. Not this time. The first ambush came in the shattered remains of an overpass, where enemy scouts, angular, sharp-limbed things, moved in silence. They weren't expecting resistance, let alone humans. But we moved like wolves, silent, fast, desperate. She stayed behind us, crouching low, shielding the flame with her body as our rifles cracked and the night lit with muzzle flash. When one of the enemy drones broke through and lunged toward her, she didn't scream. She shifted, spun, and drove a shard of broken steel straight into its chassis, tearing it open as sparks spat across her glowing skin. "Keep moving," she said softly, as if nothing had happened. We did. Hours bled into one another, and the closer we got to the spire, the heavier the air became, filled with the scent of ozone and the low hum of alien machinery. The girl's steps grew slower, her chest heaving softly, but she never let the flame dim. At dawn we saw it, the arc spire, its skeletal frame reaching like a claw into the clouds. Enemy patrols circled its base. Towers of energy shimmered around it, bending the light. And yet, she walked toward it, her teal eyes glowing brighter than the sunrise. The final push was chaos. Drones swarmed. Mechs thundered across the cracked earth. Rifles burned hot, and men fell screaming, but we never stopped. Not because we thought we could win, but because she never faltered. When we reached the spire's heart, half buried beneath twisted steel, she placed the flame inside a hollow chamber where old human tech still hummed faintly. The ground shook. The light burst outward, not just flame now, but vines of raw, living energy spreading across the ruins, wrapping the spire, crawling up into the dark sky until the clouds themselves seemed to breathe. The girl collapsed forward. I caught her. Her skin was warm, her breathing ragged, her eyes barely open. Did it work? I asked. Her lips curled into the faintest smile. Your world will live. Then the spire roared, and every dormant weapon humanity had left powered on. The night burned with our return, and we carried her through the smoke, our last flame, our first hope, into the dawn.